有请嘉宾上台。Welcome to the Evolving Singapore Education System Subforum. Let's welcome our speakers on the stage.
Very good afternoon to all. Welcome to the session. We thank you for your interest in the Singapore education system and educational enterprises in Singapore. Well, let me begin with a story. This morning you heard from some Nobel Prize winner, but you know, there was this great professor, Albert Einstein. And one day he was taking a train and it was a winter, and he got his ticket and then he went up the train. As usual, the train conductor came to check for his ticket. But Einstein had so many pockets, he didn't know where he put his ticket. So he turned to the conductor and says, you know, I really got my train ticket. It's just that I don't know where I put the ticket. By the way, my name is Einstein and I work as a university professor. Then they realized, the conductor realized that, oh, that is the famous professor. So he said to him, sir, don't worry about your ticket. Don't worry about your ticket. So he went off. Few minutes later, when the conductor walked down the aisles of the train, he found that Einstein was still standing up and still looking for his ticket. So he went up to the professor again and says, sir, don't worry about your ticket, because I know who you are. And Einstein looked at him and says, I also know who I am, but I don't know where I'm going. Well, that is the danger of having a professor lead a seminar. I'm not too sure if we know where we are going. But I'm very happy to have a very distinguished panel with me. And I'll do a quick introduction of them. And after that, I will be throwing some questions for discussion. Right. So right next to me is Dr. Wu Yan. Right. So Dr. Wu is one of our famous creative people. Yeah, she heads the Yumcha Studio. And she's well known for having created the Little Dim Sum Warriors that have become a very popular bilingual book that has also been transformed into apps plus many other forms of media, right? And her works have even created a major musical that is actually premiered at the Shanghai Theatre and have toured many cities in Singapore. She holds a doctorate from the Columbia University Teachers College. Right, and next is John. John is the CEO of Saturday Kids, which is also and he's also a partner at 2 micro venture of capital funds, and he has been investing in technological startups since 2011, including some of the famous names like RedMart, Shopee, Ninja Van, and so on. He is very interested and is a champion of creating curiosity school for children and young adults. John is also a member of the first class of the Obama Foundation Leaders Asia Pacific program. Right, and then next to John, we have Xian. Yeah, and Xian is the executive director of EtonHouse. EtonHouse operations, I think we know, is well known internationally for creating international schools in the early years and so on. Eton has rich experience working in both the finance industry as well as investment industry before moving into this the area of the education business. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from McClinton School of Commerce at the University of Virginia. Right, and next to Isan, we have Mr. Gan, Boonsan. Boonsan is the Chief Business Officer of CommonTown. He has extensive experience working in the IT area, beginning with the Singapore Early IT Master Plan for our Ministry of Education, and has went on to head many enterprises related to IT development, and has worked with Oracle, APAC, and is now leading major initiatives, and he will talk about some of the major work that he has been doing to help our ministry in the area of education and IT, right? And we are very happy Hazel is here. Yeah, Hazel is the co-founder of the Joni.ai, which is an adaptive assessment platform, deals with using technology and helping children learn without anxiety through technology in many areas of learning and assessment. So before joining her venture, Hazel actually worked as an impact investment analysis and has been a tax advisor also internationally. Right, so we have a very distinguished panel, and I'm going to begin with a few comments, and then I will direct my panelists to help with further ideas. Well, many people are very interested in the Singapore education system. This coming December, you have the NET PISA results, and people know that Singapore does very, very well across the sector in maths, science, reading. Singaporeans are is disproportionately represented in terms of Olympiad games, Olympiad competitions in the science areas. In terms of university, we are a small country, but two of our top universities are actually ranked within the top 20s. In fact, ranked within number 12 of the world's best universities according to QS ranking. So, what is it that makes the Singapore education successful? Well, Singapore is a very small country, and it's a country that does a lot of planning, which is very dangerous because in today's world we can't plan for the future, right? So we're asking, how do we plan for the unplanned, right? But I think we do have quite a robust educational system, both within the public and the private sector. And the key fact is that I think we're very clear about the aims of education. I think the aims of education are simple, basically two things. You can think of it as two simple C's in English. The first C is character, and the second C is competence, right? Education is about nurturing character. By character, we mean not only sound, virtues, social-emotional learning, but creating the necessary predisposition for social-emotional interaction, the disposition for diligence, the disposition for coping with life, for adaptation, right? And it's also the character that create the prerequisites of learning and thinking, you know, the ability to reason, the ability to be creative, and so on. So that is the first C. The second C is competence. Competence. So education has to have a curriculum that is always relevant to equipping the person with the skills, the knowledge, the capabilities to survive according to the times and the need of the workforce. So that is the second C, the competence. And if you look at the education system across the board, what we have done well primarily is that I think we equip our people with very strong fundamentals. If you look around the world from the research perspective, all the countries that have a great lead in science, in innovation in the early years, they all have a good fundamental in science and mathematics education. France, Germany, the US, and so on. So you cannot move away from such fundamentals. And that is why the emphasis on these things and the ability to create a system, an ecosystem, where children can grow up and benefit with all this strong fundamental is very strong. It's very critical for equipping them for the future, right? So that is one part that is we do very well, emphasizing that strong fundamentals. And I think Asian society, parents are all into this understanding, and that is why they want to give kids the best foundation in reading, maths, and science. Now, apart from that, I think the educational system in Singapore is also evolving. This is work very much in progress, but one of the key things that we do understand is that education must not just be analytical, but education has to be generative. In other words, it's a different ballgame altogether. It's not about analyzing information or data that you have, but being able to create and think new things. That imaginative mode of thinking, right, calls for a different form of learning altogether, which I think today, increasingly, all the various systems are emphasizing. So, with that as the backdrop, I just want my distinguished colleagues to share with you further some of the things that they have been involved with to give you a further insight into the kind of things we do. So I'm going to start with Yan, because she is our creative lady here, you know. I mean, when I think of these later Dim Sum warriors, you know, I mean, you think of it, right? I mean, education always enjoy things like animation, storytelling, humor, you know, creativity, and she has been able to really epitomizes that in her works. So, Yan, my question to you is that how do the education system you see going forward through such caricature education foster important things like character development and creativity?
Hi, 我是胡恩恩吴妍妍。大家下午好。So today I'll speak in English. So the work that I've been doing is I've been bringing my dumplings. So they are called 虾饺、叉烧包 and 烧麦 around the world in different places. And they battle a pot of evil instant ramen. So 他们的敌人是方便面上校。So I brought one of my books here. It's called it's a 双语书. It's a bilingual book. So whoever asks the first question later, you get a free book. Okay, so one of the things that I've been doing a lot of in the past couple of years has been, as I work with the Lee Kuan Yew Bilingualism Fund in Singapore, I've also been talking to a lot of families, a lot of schools, and creative people. One of the big concerns in Singapore currently has been the state of our bilingualism, 我们的双语制度, because so far we have been very good at I'll just give you a little bit of background. Singapore's bilingualism, the decision to go bilingual started in the 1960s. 1966, we started a bilingual policy, but it's not a fully bilingual policy. What it means is that it's an English-led bilingual policy. What that means is English dominant, because English is seen as a language of world commerce, right? And then as a mother tongue. So the mother tongue would be divided into Mandarin, Tamil, or Malay. So if you think about our bilingualism, it's like the mother tongue occupies about maybe 3 to 4 hours of curriculum time each week, and English occupies about 25 hours of curriculum time each week. So that's our version of bilingualism. What has happened, if you fast forward to today, our Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong recently talked about a big worry that we are fast becoming monolingual rather than truly bilingual. Because in the new incoming cohort of primary 1 students, we have found that 70% of Chinese families now use English as a dominant language at home. And the level of Chinese is getting worse and worse. We've had to simplify our curriculum in order to make it easier for Singaporean Chinese. And this has a lot to do with creativity as well. One of the issues with, so it was always thought of that English would be our functional language, our language of work, and Chinese, Tamil, and Malay would be linking us to our cultural roots. 那是我们文化的根。But what has happened is because kids realize that if they are good in English, our families realize that if they are good in English, they can get ahead in school because science, math are all taught in English. They can get good jobs. Therefore, Chinese or the mother tongue has become basically a subject that they have to do well to pass the exam. It has become a 工具性了, become an instrumental language rather than as a language that communicates culture. It's not a language that communicates stories and culture. So one of the, and what has happened is that in the teaching of the language, it tends to be geared towards preparing kids for exams. So when they learn the mother tongue, it's to prepare kids for exams. So there's very little oracy, very little speaking, mostly writing, and very little creativity in the curriculum. So the other main issue in Singapore education now is the worry about creativity. How do we get our people to be very, very creative in the world? In a study called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, what they found was for countries that do very well in PISA, there's an inverse relationship to entrepreneurship. It's inverted. So countries like Singapore, that does very well in the PISA, it's very low on the global entrepreneurship index, right? Countries like Spain that doesn't do well on the PISA is actually much higher in terms of entrepreneurship capabilities and perceived entrepreneurship capabilities. So that's a really significant question for us in Singapore right now. We are able to be very, do very well in exams, but is that translating into entrepreneurship? And what if they are mutually exclusive? Are we ready to fall behind on PISA scores in order to be more creative and to be more entrepreneurial? So I'll just say that so my role is I'm trying to use my little dumplings, 我的小小点心, to create greater cultural confidence. I think we've done very well in terms of competence. Is in terms of cultural confidence. How do we culturally confident as we see the world? By being culturally confident, can we actually be very global? And we dare to be global and be creative.
Thank you, Yan. Thank you for the insights. Right. Next, I'm going to go to Xian first. Xian is the CEO of EtonHouse, and he has a lot of international experience. So I would like you to tell us, in the Singapore brand of education, in your experience, how do we tap on the best of the East and West in terms of the ideas and practices, and how do we prepare our next generation for more global participation age?
Thank you. 其实刚才胡女士她说出来我们新加坡人对华文的这个问题啊，我就突然间想起来一个笑话。在我们的幼儿园，在新加坡，全部的华文老师是从国内来的。然后我觉得国内的幼儿园老师他们真的有爱心吧，说孩子们都喜欢华文。然后进入了新加坡政府学校小学之后啊，全部老师都是新加坡人吧，然后华侨的华文老师都特别严，然后他们会打藤条啊，非常凶啊。然后之后啊，全部的孩子们他们都恨华文，像我这样。 到现在已经变成成人了，现在我也是需要培训班，我需要有补习班，每个拜六。所以我们请我们的我们的国际学校的一位华文老师给我做补习班。因为我是觉得，如果我们一直教孩子们终身学习，我自己也是做个榜样那样。OK， 我 switch 到英文吧。So I think the speaker this morning, he spoke about inquiry-based learning. He called it research-based learning, 探究课程. And I think that's really the way forward for us. All of us here, we all went to very traditional schools. I think Chinese is a very good example. People haven't found a way to teach Chinese, especially using technology in a way that's very in a inquiry-based learning way. And when you consider how, so I often give this example. In Singapore, we have the 小学毕业考试, so the PSLE, primary school leaving exam. And we are the only country, I think, in the world that has an exam that can shape your entire life when you're 12 years old. And the reason why we do it in Singapore is because we have a few famous secondary schools, 中学, 出名的中学. So this exam helps to send these children to these schools based on your results. And so in Singapore, you have something like 高考, so like a big exam when you're 12 years old. And you compare that to the international school world, where when you're 12 years old, you're given an inquiry-based exam. So they give you a project to research. So you get to choose a project that you want to research. You are given about 10 months. And over 10 months, the child has to find the project, write a paper, do a presentation, and also do a PowerPoint like discussion to everyone, and stand in front of his friends, his parents, his peers, his teachers. And to me, it's quite interesting because I operate international schools in Singapore where this is happening. And yet at the same time, in government schools, we have this very traditional exam going on. And I always ask myself, which one prepares you more for the real world? Is it the research-based exam where the child has to learn project management, has to learn how to present, has to learn content, and be able to use the content, or compare this to our 小学毕业考试, where you have to basically study for like a big exam that makes or breaks your entire life. And what we've done is that we've taken the research-based or inquiry-based learning methodology and we apply it to all of our schools. We specifically use something called the Reggio Emilia philosophy, which is a much wider topic. That's the first way. And the second way is through bilingualism. And this is a very deep topic. When you talk about bilingualism, what do you really mean? And let me give you an example. In our international schools, each of our classes has a Mandarin teacher and an English teacher. And both of them participate in inquiry. And the problem is how much bilingualism do you want? So let's say you're researching insects. And then let's say you're looking at a particular species of butterfly. Do you want the child to be able to say that species of butterfly in Chinese and in English when the child is not able to be surrounded by Chinese outside of the school? It doesn't make sense. So when you talk about bilingualism, you want to be able to converse and communicate in both languages, but there's still a certain degree of depth that you just cannot reach, especially if your children are in an international school environment where 30% of your friends, they leave every year to go back to their home country. And the reason why we became bilingual schools is because my mother, she was a 华小生. She was a Chinese school student. And when she went to university in the 1970s, it was the first time she encountered English. And so all of her textbooks, she had to translate every single word into Chinese. And it was very, very painful for her. And later on, when she created her international school group, she said, I want all children in my school to be able to speak English and in Chinese. And that's why we've been doing this almost from the very beginning, 24 years ago. It's not easy because everyone likes diversity, but when you introduce diversity in the classroom with teachers, you're bound to have some cultural differences, 文化差异. But I think that's what makes managing schools fun and enjoyable. And if we want our students to be able to go out into the world and work internationally, then they should have educators who are international also.
Thank you, Xian. I work very closely with the public system, so I have to defend the public system a little bit, you know. Well, the primary school system is also evolving. It's basically a placement system, not just for the top school, but actually to enable students to go to schools that better meet their aspirations and their variety. So things are changing and improving. Right, I'm going to next go to John, because the importance of education in the early years and the intervention with children and parents are very important. And John has been pretty experienced in this area. Would you like to comment? Yeah.
So I'm exhibit number 1 of bilingualism in Singapore. Not because my Chinese is great, but because I went to a school called Chinese High in Singapore, 华侨中学。以前上课之前要唱《满江红》。So well now it doesn't exist anymore. It's called Hua Chong Institute. But I guess I'm forever grateful for all the Mandarin that I learned in school, and that's why I can kind of make my way around Beijing today. So what we do at Saturday Kids, a lot of people think that we are just a coding school for kids, but actually what we're really trying to do is to use coding as a way to inspire curiosity in kids and to make them self-directed learners, and that's really our mission. So it's not so much the technical skills, even though the ability to think computationally, that's useful. But I think what's more fundamental is, can we get a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old to keep asking questions like a 3-year-old, right? I think that's really the difference. To me, that's the difference between a successful person and everybody else, right? Is that curiosity, that constant desire to ask why not. So we opened an office in Tokyo earlier this year, and actually, for the longest time, I've been flirting with the idea of getting kids to learn Mandarin through coding, right? But because we opened an office in Tokyo, we saw that there was huge demand from parents for kids to learn English. And the thing is, in Japan, the children and even the adults, they've been learning English for years, right, for decades. But most Japanese people still don't speak English confidently. So then we figured, actually, what if we use coding as a way to get kids to learn English? So we designed an entire program around that, right? And I'll just briefly share what the difference is. In a standard English class, right, it's a lot of rote memorization, and maybe you start the class with, this is a pen, right? And then every child repeats, this is a pen 10 times. So what we've done in Japan is we use robotics. So we use a tool called Strawbees. The kids start every lesson by just building structures, right? And then at the end of a class, instead of saying this is a pen, a child would say something like, I built a bridge. It's so much more powerful because it's learning in an immersive English environment, right? And I think one of the key takeaways is that we have shown these kids that learning a language can be fun. It doesn't have to be about studying for a test or an exam. It doesn't have to be drill-based, right? So when they are building bridges and trying to make a mechanical movement using their Strawbees, it doesn't feel like they are learning a language. They're just playing, right? So the concept of asobu and manabu it's so powerful, and I think that's what's lost today in modern day education, in mainstream education, which is that we have taken so much of the fun out of learning that actually kids have a phobia of learning because they think that if I have to learn it, it means that I'm going to be tested on it, right? So that's really what I'm trying to do with Saturday Kids. And so we came up with a new tagline, my Japan team. In Japan, our tagline is play for the future, right? So it's really about playing and staying curious.
Thank you. Yeah, kids these days are very, very different. Kindergarten 2 kid, a teacher was trying to ask the kid some questions to test their level of numeracy, and she says, if I have 3 apples in one hand and 4 apples on the other hand, what do I have? A small kid put up his hand and says that you must have very large hands. Right, okay. So now I want to go to Hazel. Hazel has done a lot of assessment and adaptive diagnostic testing to help people learn. And we all know that assessment is a very important part of the whole learning process. Tell us something about what you have done to help people learn best.
Okay, so hi, my name is Hazel. So 大家好，我的名字叫魏丽冰。I'll switch to the English mode as well, because there will be technical terms involved which I cannot speak in the Chinese format. So yes, we deal with adaptive assessment. Basically, we focus on generating personalized questions for students and also helping them with the revisions. So we actually leave all the pedagogy, the learning of the introduction of new topics to educators who are more professional in that area. And how we do that is we use data, and then we use machine learning to come up with the model, and we select the suitable question for the student. So I think when it comes in this field, data collection is a huge problem, and we actually spend a lot of time gathering the data in this field. So earlier on, Dr. Dan actually shared about the competence, and we also talk about character. And one of the flip side about competence, when we focus so much on competence, is the lack of creativity. However, another flip side is inequity, because Singapore, another thing I'm very proud of is how meritocratic it is. If let's say you study hard, you're able to get into the so-called good schools that John shared with us earlier. And but then, because of the lack of resources and quality, like the speaker shared this morning, there's actually inequity is also something that is happening right now. And how we actually want to help is we want to use technology to stretch the supply of education so that more students are able to receive quality content, especially if, let's say, the pedagogy or the quality of the teachers are not at a professional level, and then we are able to provide a threshold to deliver some kind of quality to the student. And if, let's say, things that can be automated, then the educators can focus on what cannot be automated so that they can deliver value to the student. Because when students come into the classroom, they come in as a whole human being, with a facade of problems surrounding them, not just as a learner. But what we can do, especially with the research-backed pedagogy that was shared earlier this morning, because there are actually systematic ways that is proven to help the student. And if, let's say, we are able to deliver them consistently in a certain manner, we are able to help the entire class to improve in terms of the academics. However, there are areas such as family problems, emotional issues, that is the reason why the students don't want to learn. And these things cannot be cured by the delivery of content. And this is where the educator need to come in to provide the emotional support, the inspiration, the motivations to make them want to learn. And we want to give the educators more time. And that's why we develop our software. And as we develop the software, we don't only, because we believe that education is a two-way communication. So we help the students learn with all this embedded pedagogy, but you also want to help the educators to help the students to learn as well. So we have platforms for each of the target audience, because how special education is as an industry on its own. So that's a little of what we do. So we are a social enterprise as well. We actually provide all this free of charge to students from community centers, because we mentioned about meritocracy. And because we are a tech company, we are able to do so since we can scale over fixed costs, right? So that's a little things of how we do. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. So Last but not least, I'm going to ask Boonsan to share with us. Boonsan is a CEO of CommonTown, and he has done a lot of projects both within the public and the private sector. Boonsan, please.
Thanks, Prof. 大家好. I think CommonTown, we are privileged in the sense that we have been working very extensively with the Ministry of Education in Singapore, public schools, as well as international and private schools across Southeast Asia countries. So that gives us a lot of appreciation of the challenges school systems face across different jurisdictions and countries. As a company, we believe first in education, then technology. EdTech is education first and technology. Technology, at the end of the day, is but just a tool for the educator to be able to lead the students and facilitate and help the students in learning. So I think the emphasis must be right, and I think we got it right. And that, and because of that, we do have an education research team in the company. We also work with the universities such as NUS, NTU, researchers to ensure that the product we do has got what we call purposeful interactivity and not just looks nice, because to the untrained eyes, things with a lot of bells and whistles and music and animation seems like a very interesting things to the kids. But really, is it helping the children learn, or is it just a distraction? It's a big question that we are always very careful about. With that, I think I just want to share that we are very fortunate that we have worked with Ministry of Education in Singapore. I just want to raise a couple of examples. One was just launched this year across Singapore schools. Is what we call the interactive mother tongue learning language. As we talk about mother tongue learning challenges in Singapore. So the objective really is to create a tool set for the teachers. The points, the considerations are very in line with what Prof. Tan mentioned, as well as Prof. Wyman mentioned earlier this morning. That learning is about the pedagogy. You get pedagogy right, I think a large part of issues are solved. So these tool sets are developed together with Ministry of Education is an interactive, immersive environment with rich tool sets so that the teachers could, based on the teaching strategies she or he so choose for the day, for the session, or for the series, is able to mix text, language, media, video, newspaper reporting, so the current affairs of the day, and make it a topic in a very collaborative and participative platform for the students to be able to participate and be very active in learning. This is precisely what Prof. Wyman and Prof. Tan mentioned about. Learning is, first of all, is an active process. Secondly, there's the need to be a lot of communications. So they are learning pods, learning capabilities for teachers to be able to communicate either one-to-one or on a class basis, either in class or as well as post-class activities. So the kind of thing, you think about it. So it kind of brings the learning to life, right? It's about how we can bring the learning level interest, the relevance, so that the children, if it's instead of learning just particular vocabulary or sentence or grammar structure, it can be very boring. But you inject things to life, both in terms of the relevance to the daily life, as well as a right level of interactivity. And I think it makes the learning a whole lot different. And we are very eager, in our trial, the outcome has been very positive. Now it has been rolled out to all schools in Singapore. And I think that we're really excited about its next possibilities. The next thing I want to share about is a math learning, is an adaptive learning program that we actually did with a publisher in Singapore. In Singapore, the Education Ministry will publicize the content, textbook to be used in schools. So the next batch of math books in Singapore secondary school starting next 2 months time, January 2020. So we published with we did work with the publisher to make math learning in secondary school a lot more fun is there because of interactivities and all the communication tools and all that, but also more adaptive in understanding what are the challenges and where are the strengths of students. So we were able to have a system that cut across the different platforms. So maybe a little bit of background. In Singapore, it's very common whereby the schools will use a textbook. They may use a textbook or they may not use a textbook, but they will have a scheme of work that they do. Then they will have a workbook and then maybe some sort of exercise book. So we work with the publishers that allow the textbooks to be input into the system. And of course, teachers could actually modify based on the scheme of works that they so choose to defer or for whatever reason that they want to. And the system will be able to navigate through both the text in the systems, as well as directing the students to practice. And based on the practice outcome, understand how the students is doing in particular subject content, the point, and be able to go back to the text or the scheme of work where the learning can be revised before it come back to practice. So it's highly interactive again, with a lot of communicative and collaborative tools for the teachers to be able to conduct lessons in a very modern method, so to speak, that the children will find it a lot more engaging, right? And I think these are some of the things that we kind of like to share. And also, even though this is a forum about Singapore education, I also want to say that Singapore as a place is actually a very good place for some of you who are looking both at Singapore, understand Singapore, as well as trying to understand Southeast Asia. As a company, we actually do a lot of work as well with Southeast Asian countries. Again, we are fortunate to be working with researchers in Singapore universities as well as MOE here. We are able to share some of this learning and methods to the schools across the region. And in the process, what's most satisfying for us is to be able to see the children benefit and learn in a much more fun and effective way in the process. Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. So I think we have time to take a few questions. So I will welcome questions from the floor. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. 大家应该中文都明白是吗？我是从事营地教育的，我们让孩子通过营地去学习，都是非常基于项目式的、基于研究式的学习。然后我们每年也会带很多孩子去国外，我们给他们设计了每个国家我们认为，基于他们的文化、自然科学等等那个最有主题的点。我每年其中带很多孩子去新加坡，然后我们曾经设计过新加坡的学习的那个主题是，我们认为新加坡最有代表性的是，比如说自然和城市的融合。为什么新加坡可以做得很好？还有像李光耀先生做的双语教育以及民族和民族之间的融合，四个种族之间的融合。那我们现在还在想说，未来想请教各位教育界的专家，如果我们中国的孩子去新加坡，那大家认为在新加坡的国家文化教育当中，还有什么是非常有价值的，值得中国的孩子这个飞这么远几千公里去新加坡去学习？然后这是我的问题，谢谢。
接着第二个可以吗？ Okay. We take another question first before we answer this one. Yeah, please.
Okay. I come from Beijing SMIC School, Beijing 中心学校. My school adapted Singapore elementary mathematics curriculum from 6 years ago, and it, goes very well. My question is, the Singapore mathematics seems to be inclusive, not try to going out. Many of the materials is not easy to get from Singapore. Is there anything could be available, or what is the policy? Singapore would like to give out those information, education curriculum to share with that any Chinese school like us. 我是北京中心学校中心国际学校办的这个学校，我们从6年前就用了新加坡的数学教材，非常好。前2年家长都快疯掉了那后来就觉得非常好。我的问题就是，新加坡的教材好像是政府管控，对外面的分享非常难，是不是有更好的这个愿意跟在中国愿意使用新加坡教材的这个学校做分享？谢谢。
Okay. Right, thank you. We'll go with these 2 questions first, and then we maybe can take another 1 or 2 questions later on. I'll make a first comment, and then after that, I'll let my colleagues here. So if you come to Singapore, what's new, right? You bring students. I think if you look at Singapore's evolution in the system, what you will see in the classroom today, very different from maybe 5 to 10 years ago, is that there is a lot more questioning. The irony of Asian education is that actually education in your Chinese is 学问, right or wrong? 学 is to learn, right? 问 is to question. But if you look at the classroom, right, there's very little questioning, right? So one of the things that we have done a lot in Singapore, I think both within the public and the private schools, is that they have moved towards a very questioning system where students ask a lot of questions and learn to ask questions to one another. So I think this is very important. In the past, if you look at the system, people only ask clarification questions, but now people ask probing questions. People ask consequences questions. People ask rhetorical questions. People ask provocating questions. And I think this is the kind of shift that is very important in our Asian education system. Maybe my colleagues can comment something as well.
Well, I'll just add one point. You know, I spoke to EtonHouse principal before, and I asked her, you know, what are some of the challenges that EtonHouse students face when they move from, you know, preschool to primary school, and she told me, well, the biggest problem is the MOE teachers tell us that our students ask too many questions, which I thought was ridiculous, right? Like, you know, that's what learning is about. But you know, it's not a system that is designed to encourage kids to ask questions.
其实我想起来个问题时候，我在想着，如果我是个从中国来的学生来到新加坡，有可能除了这个不同的民族这个问题，除了那个之外，我觉得我会突然间发现到，其实华侨真的有那么多人。好像李光耀有说过，在我们华侨是农夫的后代，但是国内的人是龙的后代。然后我就想起来，因为新加坡真的是很像中国啊，有些方面吧，当然科技方面我们都有一点不是太好吧，但是文化方面我们真的是不一样的民族都掺起来，也是都和睦相处，所以这个我觉得永远都会一个特色吧。
OK， 我是从做技术角度来看，因为我们跟新加坡教育部也是做了很多年。然后第一个问题就是说，新加坡教育部的特色，这个我说他们从规划方面，他们的重点现在除了说学习之外，还要做一个character， 就是个性跟人生培养。然后其中一个很重要就是沟通，就是刚才 Prof Tan 说的所谓的发问，因为我觉得这一点，从我做技术角度来看，因为我们跟他们研究人员跟教授做事，他们都说如何使到你的工具，使到学生更容易、更不会害臊的，不会怕被人嘲笑的状况下发问、参与以及沟通。我觉得在这方面的话，渐进式的会使到学生会更加敢于发问，所以这个是一个过程，因为这亚洲的文化的背景就是到中国现在大同小异，所以这方面我是觉得说，我以目前我做过这么多来看，我觉得这最近5年10年，新加坡的学生大体上是已经有可以明显的看到很多学生都已经开始走向这个方向，就是说他们比较敢于发问，敢于接触。然后新加坡一个体系就是新加坡的教体系相当开放一个本来是一个开放的国家，然后所以在使到学生成长的过程中学到如何开放，同时很有自信于你自己本身的价值跟本身的地位，所以在人与人沟通方面的时候，他们就会觉得这跟各不同民族跟不同国家的人员在学习方面在沟通方面都有很大的帮助。然后第二个问题很快就是说很多其实我到过很多国家看，很多国家的那些尤其私人学校都用新加坡的课本。譬如说跟我一起合作的那个开发商，他做那个数学课，他数学课本是销售到美国跟欧洲，所以我们也跟他们走。所以教育部官方的那规则我就不好做了，因为我不是内行人。不过从那个学习方面还是有渠道，你可以得到很多这些的这些资料。
那我您先吧。
我除了吃榴莲以外，我特别建议认识一下新加坡怎么样在文化冲突的环境怎样去有创造性，文化冲突怎么样有创造性。 所以例如 Singlish， 新加坡新式英语是一个很有创造性的语言。很多年来，新加坡在 struggle， 就是在挣扎的说 ，How do we learn your language but have my own thoughts？ 我怎样学习你的语言，不过有我自己的想法，这个是非常重要的，而且是我觉得新加坡已经挣扎很久，可以分享的。
好，那我觉得我是在这位先生的话语上补充的。我觉得新加坡还有一个地方做得特别好，就是课外活动。因为每一个学生，不管是从小学开始到中学，你不只是上课，早上上课，上完课之后，下午都会去参加课外活动。那课外活动的话，每一间学校都有很多各种各样的，从体育到音乐到演戏到舞蹈，甚至还有文学欣赏啊，各种各样的。这个呢，我觉得是非常重要的一点，因为从小就让孩子去学习新的东西，然后也有团体这样子的一个活动。对，好，那就是这样，谢谢。
Yeah. So one more thing I would add is that actually, if you come to Singapore, myself, I travel a lot looking at educational innovation all over the world. And one of the things that you will notice is that there is a lot of design thinking going on, from the museums to parks to even common areas. And I think there's a lot of value in observing these things. Right. So I think because of time.
Can I just say one
oh,
last thing?
Yes, please.
Just
Yeah.
one last thing.
Yeah.
我刚才在台上刚想到，将来不只是好未来，是好玩未来 ，Play for the future.
Thank you. Well, because of time, I think we will have to bring the session to a close, but we will be, the members are happy to be around for the next 20 minutes. So after this, because we have to leave the room for the next session, they'll be just outside, so feel free to approach them and to talk to us. Thank you very much.
谢谢。